The question is, which repressions go hand in hand with today's predominant social character orientation, namely the marketing orientation, and represent a challenge for all transformation processes. Let's first ask how the marketing character came into being. Industrial mass production and the now global cutthroat competition are important reasons why in the market for goods and services it is no longer the use value but the exchange value that determines the market. So that the question of marketing, the sales strategy, becomes increasingly important. How can a product be sold? This requirement of a successful business plan returns in a new basic striving of the many persons, that is to say, in a social character orientation, in which humans likewise understand themselves as a commodity which must be sold successfully. In Fromm's words, the character orientation, which is rooted in the experience of oneself as a commodity and of one's value as exchange value, I call the marketing orientation. The following features are typical of the marketing character: to be able to sell one's products and to sell oneself successfully and profitably. One has to be able to adapt and to be flexible, like a chameleon. The decisive factor is performance. How one appears, communicates, advertises, and presents oneself. It is not who one actually is as a person, but which characteristics one acquires that determines whether one is successful and among the winners. Only what is positive, what is friendly, appreciative, leads to success, which is why only this, reliable and authentically, is to be presented and and communicated, while everything else, particularly every negative and peculiar, is to be repressed if possible. The requirement of successful marketing also determines the psychodynamics. The marketing-oriented person acquires marketable personality attributes, competences, forms of communication, independently of his actual being, and, if possible, represses all cognitive, emotional, and imaginative own powers which do not promise success because they are critical, difficult, or negative. This leads to an increasing loss of one's sense of one's personal effectiveness, derived from mental strength, and to the attempt to compensate for this with increased efficiency and increased training of acquired powers, what we call self-optimization. Unconsciously, the marketing-oriented person becomes increasingly alienated from himself. He feels an inner emptiness and listlessness, a sort of boredom, which he tries to compensate for not only with self-optimization, but also with consumerism, that what goes in him and her. let us ask more precisely which strivings and values are socially demanded and promoted, and which are to be repressed where possible, in order to identify in this way the objectives for transformation. The most important thing of all, and the highest value in marketing orientation, is certainly the striving for success, which requires a great deal of ambition and willingness to work hard. The flexibilization of all production processes, but also the willingness to be highly adaptable and flexible, are central guiding values of a marketing-oriented economy and society. Even though everything revolves around how you present yourself and not who you are, success can only be ensured through hard work, which all too often leads to self-exploitation and also to burnout. A competitive society knows only winners and losers. Winning is a motivational drive in every economic and sporting activity, but also in gaming and quiz shows. The internalized counterpart to the economic increase in productivity is the compulsion for self-optimization, which is realized primarily through physical fitness. The decisive factor is how a person, a company, an organization can present itself. The people concerned do not have to be authentic themselves, but their performance must be. Only positive thinking, feeling, and acting are allowed if one wants to sell oneself or the organization well. Smiling is the order of the day everywhere. Praise and appreciation of the customer are the most successful marketing methods. They trigger a positive echo, even if one feels the exact opposite. In order to find out what impedes the mental growth tendency in the marketing orientation, attention must be directed to what is repressed. Of course, even marketing-oriented people still know who they really are and what their weaknesses are. And yet, there is an increasing identification with a salesman role in which nothing negative may be expressed, and the anger and the hatred are then discharged in anonymity. The permanent pressure to communicate only positive and appreciative things leads to having less and less access to how one is really feeling, while expressing positive and appreciating feelings. In order to play the role of the successful perfectly, all negative self-perceptions, such as fear, self-doubt, depressive moods, feelings of shame, have to be repressed. Not only negative feelings about oneself are taboo, all critical and negative feelings about others must be blocked out also, so that a kind of rose-colored illusory world is created with each other that has less and less to do with reality. The marketing-oriented person likes to decorate him and herself with values and ideals in order to be attractive as a salesperson or company or an organization. Their own convictions and the values and ideals they actually live no longer play a role, because they would only lead to conflicts. The consequences of repressions in marketing orientations are obvious. Direct sensing of the cognitive and especially the ambivalent emotional powers of one's own is severely restricted by a role identity. Real changes are possible only if above all the contact to the negative feelings about oneself and to critical feelings toward others is enabled and practiced again, and if human beings, not roles, communicate with each other.